Hi guys, it's Suri, so welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk about some books that made me cry. If you didn't know, I don't really cry that much at books. I mean, sometimes a book makes me tear up a little bit, but I never like full on start bawling my eyes out. These books are different. These books genuinely ripped my heart out of my chest and tore it up into a million pieces, and then stomped around on each of them a bunch of times. So I'm gonna recommend them to you. I feel like sadness in general isn't a good feeling, but there's a specific kind of sadness that can feel bittersweet, that can feel just like right at the perfect moment. Or maybe you're already kind of sad because of things in your real life, but you need an outlet. So reading a book that's gonna open the floodgates, essentially, to cleanse you of all that pent-up sadness is actually a pretty good thing. So if you're looking for those kind of books, you've come to the right place. The first is a recent read for me, and that is Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. This book is actually historical fiction slash I guess experimental fiction. It's about Lincoln's son Willie, who died at the age of 12. This is a historical fact. And when he passed away, he was put in a crypt, and his father, President Lincoln, visited him several times in the crypt because obviously it was very difficult for him to process his son's death and to let go of him. Now that alone, I think, like the thought of a child dying, is already quite sad. But the main premise of the book is that Willie hasn't fully passed away yet. He's basically stuck in a limbo world between life and death, and in that world with him are some other ghosts of people that have also not yet been able to let go of life for whatever reason. And they kind of talk to one another. They talk to Willie and they try to persuade him to give up the hold that the world has on him still, but he isn't able to do that yet because his father keeps visiting, and he just finds it really difficult to deal with that and to just say goodbye to him when he's still so visibly present, sort of. While the book throughout and the premise itself is already kind of quite cry-inducing and emotional, what really got me was the ending. The thing is that this book isn't just about the act of dying, it's also kind of what makes life livable for us and what makes it so special for us. And then in most cases it isn't like a super huge thing, but it's kind of the small things that we get attached to and that have such nostalgia and such meaning to us. And there's a moment at the end of the book where a character kind of recounts all the small things that he's attached to in life, and it's so poetic and so beautiful, and it made me cry like a baby, and I'm not ashamed to say that. It just again grabbed my heart out of my chest and it kind of just almost made me more grateful for still being alive and for still getting to experience these things. So I just love this book in general, and it definitely made me cry a whole lot. My next book made me cry because it's just straight up tragic. I think historical fiction in general can be very emotional or like hard to read because, you know, it's based in reality, because a lot of these things actually happened. You know, just thinking about these things actually happening to people is already very difficult sometimes. But this book is 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This book is set in Afghanistan, I think in a more recent past, but definitely not in the present now. But it follows two women. The first is a young girl called Mariam who is married to an older guy when she's only 15, and this is not a happy marriage. It's definitely an arranged marriage, and this just puts her in very dire circumstances. And then 2 decades later, he takes another wife who is a lot younger than her, and the two start off this friendship and kind of start commiserating and giving each other strength through these difficult times that they live through. And honestly, everything about this book is wonderful and also tragic. It not only follows these characters, but also the events in the country at that time where the Taliban take over. And this book just also opened my eyes to so much of history that I wasn't aware of. I loved this book for making me so emotionally invested in these characters' lives. They obviously had to struggle a lot and went through a lot of hardships, and that just, you know, brought tears to my eyes constantly because they still stayed strong in the face of so much adversity. And it's just a beautiful story also of friendship and like overcoming issues together, and I loved everything about this. Next, I have a fantasy that is one of the most memorable books to me because of how it broke my heart. This is Die Meisterin by Trudy Canavan. This is the German edition. In English, it's called The High Lord. This is the third book in the Magician's Guild trilogy or Black Magicians trilogy. I keep messing up that name. I don't know. The series follows a young girl called Sonia who is a natural with magic and so gets accepted into this kind of academy to train, where usually these like high-born only people go that have enough money to afford it, but because she has so much natural magic and such strong natural magic, she just gets accepted to go. And so the series is about like her kind of growing into her powers, and also about like the larger picture, like struggles between different kingdoms and stuff like that. Since this is the last book, I don't want to give too much away, but if you've read this book, you know. Like everybody who's read this book knows how sad this ending is. The worst character death ever happens in this book. It is the most heart-wrenching thing ever. It destroyed me. It destroyed my young, naive, optimistic soul. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but only a little bit, because I was so invested. And I was absolutely shocked when this character died, and it absolutely ruined me. Now I am cynical, distrustful. I question everything. I like mentally prepare myself for potential death of all my favorite characters because of this book. So, just putting it out there. If you want to have your heart destroyed like I did, read the series. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna have to mention this next book again because I've already said I cried like a baby a million times after reading it. That is the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is obviously a retelling of the Greek myth of Achilles, and if you know the Greek myth of Achilles, you know how it ends. And knowing how it ends makes it so much worse. It's about Achilles coming to accept his destiny, essentially, and about his childhood best friend and also love interest, Patroclus, who is mortal entirely. Achilles is a demigod, demigod. But I don't know the difference between semi and demi. I feel like that's the same thing, right? I don't know. But Patroclus is fully human, so he's not a part of this world, and he's kind of always in the shadow of Achilles, but still the two have such a strong bond and such a beautiful relationship, and I cried so hard at the end of this. It was absolutely beautiful. It again broke my heart, torn into pieces, la-di-da, the whole spiel. I loved it. It was fantastic. If you're just looking for a book to get that cathartic cry out, this is the book to check out. This next book, in retrospect, I don't particularly like anymore, but I want to give credit where credit is due. And this book made me cry like a baby. Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. The epilogue. And that's it. The epilogue. That's all I want to say about it. But I cried like a baby. Second to last, I have Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. This was my favorite book of 2017, I believe. This book is set in Nigeria, and it follows a young married couple who are incapable of conceiving children. So the husband is forced by his family to take on a second wife. And the story is set to the backdrop of the political events happening in Nigeria at the time, and it follows their stories as they continue through this like very difficult situation that they're faced with. I love this book. It is absolutely phenomenal. And if you have not read this for whatever weird reason, you have to. I love how emotionally invested I got into these characters' lives. I got so attached to them, and just like the struggles they went through, they're so, on like the most basic level, they're so relatable. This book just in general managed to evoke so many emotions in me, and I got so invested, so attached, that by the end, again, I keep repeating myself, but I cried like a baby, and it was definitely the good kind of crying. Like the kind of, again, cathartic crying. So check this out, give it a go. And finally, I have one nonfiction book that I want to talk about. When I originally started compiling this list, there were a lot more nonfiction books on here, but I felt like it was kind of a cheap answer. Not necessarily cheap. I don't mean it to sound callous, but like, of course, like nonfiction books sometimes can be more emotional because you know that this actually happened. Like, it's not just like inspired by something that actually happened, this actually happened. So that makes it so much more heavy, I guess. But this book I specifically wanted to mention because it was just a standout for me, I guess. I don't even know. This is The Best We Could Do by Thi Bui. It's a graphic novel memoir. It's about Thi Bui and her family who were forced to leave their home country of Vietnam during the war, how they escaped, then growing up in America kind of created this like generational gap between her and her parents and grandparents because their experiences of the majority of their life have been so different to hers, how that made her feel like kind of detached from them in a way because they just couldn't fully relate. It follows all these different aspects of her life. So this is just a heartbreaking story, and it's obviously told in graphic novel format, so it's in pictures. So you have like this added layer to it that makes it so much more impactful, and I hope I can reread this soon as well because I think it's just wonderful. I love the art. Most of it is just in black, white, and red depicted, and I don't know, I just found this super impactful and highly recommend checking this out if you haven't already. This hardcover edition of this graphic novel is also just extremely beautiful and absolutely stunning. So just for like the art itself, I recommend checking it out, but also if you want to cry and if you want to read somebody's very like heavy, hard-hitting life story, highly recommend this. And yeah, that is it for some books that have made me cry like a baby. I hope you found this video enjoyable to some extent, and you found some books that you want to pick up the next time you're in the mood for a good old cry. Let me know in the comments what books made you cry, and if you enjoy crying at books, or if that's something that barely happens for you because you just don't get that emotionally invested, or for whatever reason, leave it in the comments down below. Also, before you leave, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday, and I hope to see you very soon with another video. Until then, have a lovely week. Bye!